going on YouTube? Culturedog Sam Hatch back here with another video, as I promised in my Laserdisc collection pickups update videos. I also grabbed another player or two, and I figured it's a good time to go through my player collection because a lot of people are still coming to my old video from 2014, 2015 with my Laserdisc player collection, and some of those players have moved on. They haven't died, but I've sold them off to other happy Laserdisc enthusiasts. So now it's like a different fleet altogether, except for a few things. So we'll go through and see what the current state of affairs is for my Laserdisc player collection, and then introduce you to some of the newer cast members. So let's go check that out, shall we? So here we go with my first ever Laserdisc player. I picked this up in 1993. I showed it in my original player collection video from quite a few years ago now. It is a Sony MDP-333, and it's generally not a well-regarded player, nor any of the Sonys, and it's a constant fight I have to go through. Not to say that they're the best players out there, just that they're also not worth throwing in the trash if you can get one for a reasonable price and it still works. And this thing has been going strong since for decades. And it's treated me more than well. I put it through a lot of abuse. Loved this thing. As a young man, I was able to take advantage of those headphone jack options late at night. It's also a really good CD player, on top of being a decent LD player. And you can access all those tracks directly from the front button there. And it's got that interesting grid to show you what track you're on or what chapter you're on. Obviously, it's got CX encoding for analog and digital sound and all that good stuff. I also really enjoyed the index jumping feature on the remote for CD tracks that have indexes as well as tracks. And not much in the way of special features. There's no trick play, no digital memory or anything like that, but just did a great job at playing CDs and playing LDs, and it was my main player for quite a number of years until probably early 2000s at least, and still going. So it was definitely worth the 300 and change I picked it up at. I spent on it at Filene's. The tray opening is one of the biggest problems with it. Usually the door that folds down there doesn't fold down. If the loading belt is a little bit worn, so that's one of the first things you'll have to do if you find one of these things nowadays, is just clean that belt off so it has enough torque to push the door down. But hey, it's a piece of crap, but it's my piece of crap. And on the back side, not a whole hell of a lot. It is an NTSC player. There is a PAL version. A fellow YouTuber from Australia has got that. I forgot what the nomenclature is. I don't know if it's like a 222 or something like that. One of these days I got to get a PAL player. It does have S-Video out. Nothing to write home about. Not an amazing comb filter. And it does have a separate audio mono jack for if you have this kind of interesting concoction that you can plug the video and the audio in at the same time. It's got digital out too, Toslink, so you can watch DTS on it. The remote commander is really handy. There's that index marker thing going on there. It's got all the analog and CX and stuff, buttons you'd expect. Then we'll step it on up to the bigger daddy, the MDP-800, also known as the MDP-A7. And this one I picked up in a local lot a couple of years ago from an elderly gentleman who had, I think, recently passed on, and his daughters were selling his collection. And so this thing was pretty well babied, first owner. And this one's got all the bells and whistles that the MDP-333 doesn't have. That drop-down door apparently gives people problems on some of the other models. Maybe not so much on the 800, but it's also featured on the 600 and a few other ones, and tends to crap out. It's got a quick start feature, which I'm assuming is the same as on the Pioneers, where it just kind of skips reading the TOC or something and starts up faster. You can turn off the front lights if you want. for some late night Laserdisc and chill. You don't want all that extra, brightness bothering you. There's also a digital memory button, so you can pick up where you left off. And yeah, all the same kind of stuff as the 333 and more. It's got a tri-digital LSI, everybody's favorite. But the only thing that's interesting, it doesn't have any adjustable noise reduction, but it does have a kind of sharpness booster, which is interesting. You can set it on like soft mode or normal mode, and then juice up the sharpness a little bit, which does induce a little bit of ringing on the edges, but still, pretty cool. And it's a beefier player than the 333 for sure, but yeah, it hasn't given me any problems at all. Actually, there was like one time like a disc stuck to the hub. There was like some sticky residue on the disc label, and it stuck to the hub, and I had to retrieve it, but that was about it. It's really been treating me well. On the back side, 2 sets of AV jacks and 2 sets of S-video outs. Again, nothing to write home about. Optical out, again, great for PCM and DTS. It's got an attenuator, which is usually more for karaoke discs. And yeah, MDP-800, pretty fancy player. The only other Sony I really want to get is one of the older ones with the wood paneling on the sides. We'll see. But yeah, this is treating me pretty well for the past couple of years. And it was my go-to spare room player. And it's got a similar remote to the 333, little fancier. And yeah, this one's also dual-sided. I forgot to mention the 333 is a single-sided player. This one has got the auto flip. And it's a little noisy when it does it, but yeah, I can't complain. It hasn't given me any problems. Another auto flip player I got recently, a ProScan, which is a fancier version of an RCA, which is really just a Pioneer CLD in disguise, early 90s style. I'm actually trying to fix a friend's RCA player that's the exact same model as this, except for the badge. And I figured this will help me actually see the inside and see what it's supposed to look like when it's working correctly versus his, which I think had been dropped or something like that. And I'm assuming there's some missing parts, but this will help with the troubleshooting, comparing and contrasting. As you notice there, it's got a CD mode, which doesn't have a CD direct tray. It just puts the tray out like a portion of what it would normally do. And then if you do it in LD mode, the tray ejects entirely. Similar kind of grid, the Pioneer grid instead of the one on the Sonys. It's just got little individual boxes showing you the chapters there. And yeah, decent picture. Not too bad. It's got digital sound. And this is pre-AC3, so nothing like that. I do like it's got the peak search. I'd had a couple of Sony CD players that would have that. You could search for the highest level of volume through something. You could, obviously change the display to show you elapsed time versus remaining time. And there's also a little bit of video noise reduction on this one, which is pretty cool. It's got an intro scan, so you get a little bit of a teaser for each track. And yeah, ProScan. Only the finest in rebadging Pioneer product. It's been working pretty well so far. I picked it up on Facebook Marketplace, local, in New England. It was a little bit of a drive to pick it up, but I got it wicked cheap, and I'm hoping to, eventually get it in a good home somewhere. But I gotta do a couple things to it and put it through its paces and make sure it's working great. The interior's got that annoying drop-down kind of design where instead of lifting up the disc to press up against the top clamp, it drops the entire thing down, and there's that kind of like egg crate looking device towards the front of the player, which makes it very difficult to actually access things. It's got S-video out, 2 jacks of composite AV, and optical out, which is nice. The silly transit screw. I think this is of that era where the transit screw really didn't do much. Some of the older 80s players, it was a little bit more necessary to keep the laser optical block from sliding around and crashing into things. Yeah, manufactured in 1991. So yeah, this is early CLD material. The remote was in really nice shape, so thankfully the original owner had that as well. And all the usual shenanigans on here, direct access to side A or side B, and all sorts of tasty audio options for you. But yeah, good player, nice and cheap for sure. But definitely worth the investment. And you've seen this before, the work player, the Panasonic LX-H670. And I wish I had a 680, because that one has AC3. This one just has a digital out and just predates AC3. But it's still a nice player. It's not quite a 900 or a 600 even. But the 670 and 680 are good dual-sided players, and it's seen a lot of activity. I actually got this from a buddy of mine who bought it. He was the original owner. It's got optical out, which is always nice, one S-video out, and then 2 sets of AV jacks, composite style. But yeah, I took this to Retro World Expo, did some screenings there. It's been my work player for quite some time, and we've screened a ton of movies there. Made in 95 too, so relatively, late in the game, which is nice. Yes, they could have put AC3 in this thing. Oh well. But yeah, it's done me really well. And also the remote, which my buddy didn't have his anymore, so I had to get a replacement from eBay, which didn't take that long actually. I found it relatively quickly. And in the meantime, I was using an LX900 remote, which is a little bit overkill. Sadly, no jog shuttle on this one. But there is a jog shuttle on the Quasar. Yeah, this is the LD700. I've shown this in a previous video as well. This is my pride and joy. Only one other person I know owns one of these things. He actually got it from a dealer. And I picked this up years ago on eBay with the original remote, which was nice. And this is a Panasonic LX900 in disguise, but it fixes some of the issues with the 900, like some missing information on the right hand of the screen and the automatic gain control bug that would kind of mess with the black levels. It does have some noise reduction. It's got 2 modes. Mode 1 is usually the one I'll end up using. And yeah, great picture. This was used in some MSB boutique players. Some say some Runco LGR2s actually have Quasars in them and not Panasonic 900s, I guess depending on what stock was available at the time. And so this also meets THX specs because the Runco was the only THX certified Laserdisc player, and that was actually based on the specs of the LX900. So apparently the 670 also meets THX specs as is, but they just never got around to paying for that licensing fee and branding any other players as such. But yeah, this thing is gorgeous. It's one of my favorite players. I would like to add some AC3 to it. Sadly, you can't see the backside because it's lodged in my little TV rack there, but here's the remote. Thankfully, with the Quasar little brand there, I did have a 900 remote, but chances of finding a replacement Quasar one are pretty much nil. So here's Pioneer CLD D703. This is my second or third of this particular model. It is really nice, kind of higher mid-grade, right underneath the elite kind of area, and delivers a similar picture to, like a CLD 99 or CLD 97. And it does not have AC3, so that's why the D704 is a little bit more popular. But yeah, it's got a pretty strong signal-to-noise ratio. Looks great on a CRT TV. This one I got from a local eBay sale. I went and picked it up. It was maybe about like a 30-minute drive or so. Turn off the lights there. Film mode also does a bunch of things. It skips reading the TOC and all that stuff, and it doesn't jump to image when it flips sides. This is a dual-sided player, and it's got the direct CD button, so the little tiny CD tray itself goes out. It has a lot of DNR options. You could just do like a standard DNR, or you can change the noise reduction on the chroma signal versus the luma signal. So you get some options there. Instead of the big block of tracks, this one has them all lined up on the bottom. Obviously it can only go so high, but yeah, it's kind of a cool little visual cue. It's got digital sound, of course, and pretty peppy gamma turn side change. This is one of the ones where the laser assembly actually slides to the back of the player and spins around in a little carriage down there and then slides back out above the disc. Some of the later ones used a little U track that they stole from Panasonic called Epsilon, and then some of the earlier players had one called Alpha Turn, which was a little bit more complex. So this gamma turn's probably the best overall, and it's pretty peppy too. So no complaints there. So yeah, this'll I'll probably end up eventually selling this one. I just wanted to do a little bit of rehabbing to it. Obviously the spindle motor grip ring was worn, as they almost always are. Whenever you get these things and you hit play for the first time, it's the disc usually starts spinning loosely. But other than that, it's in pretty good shape. Manufactured in 1994. A couple sets of audio outs. I always like that they had the different options, so you could set, one set of AV cords into like a VCR and one into a TV. 2 sets of S-videos, coaxial and optical audio, digital audio out, which is pretty nice. A couple options for you there. Sadly, again, no AC3, but what are you gonna do? It is what it is. Oh yeah, well, you could get a CLD D704. So yeah, looks like the same player, because it pretty much is the same player. This is the CLD D704, and it's a year down the road, 95, and they decided to add AC3 to the mix. And unlike the 500s and some of the lower grade players, where they added AC3 but they took away any optical outs, this one thankfully has got everything you need. There's a small amount of players that have every possible audio option for Laserdisc, so you've got analog and digital and AC3, which is pretty sweet. Again, headphone jacks in case you want to listen late at night, not to disturb anybody. It's also a decent CD player, and it's got the same front lights off and the film mode, and the same variable noise reduction. It's got a highlight intro thing for CD tracks, I think, where it just plays a couple seconds of each track, or with film, you get a certain amount of each chapter, so you could check that out if you're so inclined. Half the features on these things I almost never use, but it's got a repeat and a random play. Obviously random play is more for music related stuff, because I don't know why you'd want to mix up a movie, but whatevs. Yeah, really good player. It's got the CLV smear, which as does the 703. I'm not really that susceptible to it, mostly because I used to have an old Sony RP-TV that smeared like a son of a gun. And CLV smear on Pioneer players is nothing compared to that. So I'm really kind of immune to it by now. And it's, depending on how you've got your monitor calibrated, it's not really that noticeable. So I know that's a deal breaker for some people, but yeah, if the price is right, it's definitely a solid player. Let's oh yeah, here's the individual CD tray, if you pop that out. It's kind of cute, neat little trick. Instead of ejecting that whole big honkin' mega tray, I always liked how they kept advancing Laserdisc player features through the years. So let's check out the backside. As expected, 2 sets of audio and video composite outs. This one was made in late 1995. You got the control out in case you want to hook it up to, there's a CD deck synchro, or you could hook it up to Pioneer Television or Pioneer AVR and have it remotely controlled. Coaxial and optical out, and double video, double S video, and yeah, CLDD704. This was, considered the player to get for quite some time. People aren't as in love with it now as they used to be, but love having the AC3 out in addition to 2 digital outs. Wicked cool. Here's the remote for both it and the D703. It's got a cool little button on the side that lights up the buttons on the bottom for basic play, and then the jog mode button also lights up red. So if you like shiny things in the dark, this is one to get. And here is the Elite DVL90. Sadly, it doesn't have the side panels on it because I had just been doing some work on it. There was a little bit of a rattle from the motor on the carriage, so Curtis, the Laserdisc Yoda from down Virginia way, was able to help me out with hooking me up with a new one. And he also hooked me up with new feet for it too, because it was missing the feet when I bought it. Love the green light. Pioneer early DVD players, their kind of cool feature was the blue light on them, which this also has. But when you switch over to LED, it turns green, which is pretty nifty. It does have the DVD isolated tray, much like the CD direct tray on earlier CLD players. This is a very early DVD LED combo player. There was the 700 as well in this, but this is an Elite. It looks really nice with the side panels on. You'll just have to take my word for it. I had a couple of these. I sold one of them, and this is the last remaining beast. It's got the nice Urushi finish on the front. Super complicated player, not even as complicated as some of the later ones where they added component video outs, which has been a source of much confusion for Laserdisc fans. But yeah, simple readout, nothing too fancy there. But it's got variable DNR, which I don't think some of the later players had. So that was pretty cool. It's got the legato thing. If you're on Laserdisc Forever on Facebook, you'll know about the legato thing. 2 separate direct buttons for LD and DVD CD. Interestingly, DVD will read CD, but you can also read CD on the LD lens as well. You can turn off the front display like you can with a lot of the other players. And it's got a pretty good video quality. I was actually surprised because I'd heard a lot of trash talk about the DVLs in general until I watched it for the first time, and looks great. Not quite up there with a CLD99 or anything like that, but pretty strong picture, so I can understand people wanting to get them. They're also very mediocre as DVD players because this was very early DVD material, and I bought a Pioneer DVD player. That was my first player, and it had horrible lip sync problems, and I ended up returning it to the store and getting a Panasonic within a couple days. But there you go, there's the individual DVD tray or CD tray. But yeah, I have been able to trick the LD lens into reading CDs, but you can also read them via the DVD, so it's a combo player. But yeah, good stuff, and it's really pretty, which goes a long way. Let's check out the backside. So DVL90. This thing has got a lot of stuff going on. Manufactured in August of 1997, and it's got a boob. So that probably means it was like refurbished or something. But yeah, it's real fascinating technology. If you look inside the thing, it's really, they just crammed a DVD player and a Laserdisc player together. Like, they're not really that well implemented. There's 2 separate optical blocks that kind of shift around depending on what you're going to watch. So yeah, all those different assemblies and everything are pretty fascinating how they implemented them. It's got 2 sets of composite video outs, 2 sets of S video outs. Here's where it gets complicated. It does have AC3 RF out for LD only, and then it's got PCM AC3 digital out for DVD and just PCM out for DVD. This is also before you could output DTS through the DVD outs, but you could do PCM out or DTS out from Laserdisc. So then you have that little optical out as well. Lots of different options, and they're not that well described. These things complicate people's lives over and over again. A cool remote. They eventually changed the remotes, but I like the early DVLs with the slide down secret compartment there with all your fancy stuff down there, step and display and all that. It's mostly a lot of special features are more kind of geared towards the DVD angle, but the later ones were just straight up DVD remote, player remotes, and this one was pretty cool. Now we're jumping back into the 80s. Here is my LDS1. Well, one of them. This one I got from a friend who pretty much got me into Laserdisc in the first place. He has a place up in Marblehead, Massachusetts, and either the prior owner or one of his neighbors had this and tossed it, and he gave it to me. It's a great player. Got a lot of the features you see on some of the later ones, like turning off the front display, digital memory for a late 80s player, and then a little sharpness, kind of picture control knob, headphone outs, great stuff. Sadly, this one will not power on. It's blowing fuses, so there's something going on. I need to really take a look at the boards and see what's going on. But I'm hoping to get it up and running again because it's still a beautiful player. Yeah, made in the late 80s, 1988 in May. And this was, the fanciest LaserVision player ever. This was even before Elite was a thing. This is this big reference kind of line of player. And this was a just specially designed player. It wasn't just like another Pioneer just slapped together. It's got a second set of video and analog outs, but one of those analog outs only won't play, I don't think, the digital audio tracks through it. So, and it was meant for some sort of future use. Luckily, I do have another LDS1 that does turn on, and it is gorgeous, and this is kind of my go-to late night viewing player. It is only single-sided, but it's so classy that playing two sides would just seem vulgar. Like, it's just so cool that you don't need two sides. Plus, I watch stuff here on this late at night all the time, so I have a tendency to fall asleep and then wake up, and it's at the end of side two anyway. So it's much easier if I can control it and just do one side at a time. Love the huge, giant 80s-tastic lights on this thing. It lights up when it's a CLV disc. That's kind of interesting, and whether or not the CX system's working. And yeah, really, really gorgeous player. I'd love to get an LDS2 as well, which is a bigger, beefier player, even better video quality. That said, I really do like the picture on this thing, but the fancy script writing says it all. And I do have, it took me a while, CULD008, the remote for this thing. Neither of mine had it, and it took me a long time to find one of these things. It's a little dusty, but it doesn't look that bad. It's just the camera makes it look a little dustier. But this helps with changing the audio tracks and all that stuff. No jog dial or anything like that, but I love having original remotes. And yeah, wood paneling on the sides, super classy, beautiful Urushi finish. Even like how the tray itself has got a lot of rating on it. And yeah, it just classes up my life. It gets me close to Ron Burgundy status for sure. So, love that thing. So let's see what else we got. Ooh, speaking of Urushi finish, I just got this from Moiki not too long ago. The newest inhabitant, the CLD99 Elite player, which I know a lot of people I mentioned before, the CLD704 and 703, have a similar picture. I've heard so many people over the years parrot that they have an identical picture through composite out, but this actually has 1 decibel stronger signal to noise ratio, and I thought it's even clearer picture. especially on my projector. Sadly, the whole front plate, faceplate just soaks up light. I'll grab a flashlight in a minute and kind of highlight some of the pieces here because you can't really see them. It's got an interesting side display. This and the CLD700 had that, and the LDS9 and a few other ones. That little side window doesn't give you a ton of information, but that said, saves extra space. Legato thing. It saves all the extra space for just shiny Urushi goodness. And like the 704, it's got everything you need on the back to play analog tracks, digital tracks, DTS tracks, and Dolby digital tracks. So I love having that kind of Swiss Army knife of audio outputs all in one place. So great player. Moiki hooked me up at a very reasonable price, so it was worth a road tripping out to his neck of the woods for it. And to think I almost paid tons of money for one of these things back in like 2002 maybe, something like that. I was going to buy a used one from a AV store not too far away from me, but it would have been a lot of money, so I'm glad I held out because it was definitely in my favor. But yeah, this has been my kind of go-to player in the main living room area where it's hooked up to my Sony SXRD projector. And yeah, gorgeous player. I'd show you the back side, but again, it's buried in the cabinet. So you'll just have to deal with seeing the front side. So there you go. You've met some old friends, maybe made a few new ones, and seen some shiny Urushi finish on at least one of those players. So, and even some cool wood panels on the side. Keeping it classy up in here. So yeah, so that's it for the players for now. No intentions on picking up a ton of stuff. Occasionally there's a couple like interesting landmark players that I certainly wouldn't mind grabbing as time goes on. Just for, I don't know. I mean, there's cool. It's cool to have some as backups, but then there's some that are interesting to have as like curiosity pieces or museum pieces, etc. So yeah, we'll see. Maybe a Runco will come my way at some point. Still wouldn't mind grabbing a CLD97 at some point. A few other players there. Even some of the off-brand players and rebrands and all that stuff. I love that kind of thing. There's also a couple of Sonys that have like the wood paneling and everything like that I'd love to grab. So yeah, it's a never-ending kind of evolving collection of players. But that said, they all get use, and I love them. And I don't have to put them through college, so that's nice, as far as I know. So thanks for hanging out and checking out the player fleet. Hopefully you had fun, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Cheers!